Welcome to Help I'm a Parent, Christian Parenting in the Real World. We're so happy that you've invited us to enter into your home, your church, or wherever you may be gathered today as we discuss your God-given role of parenting.
We're your hosts, Drs. Claudio and Pamela Consuegra, and together we serve as the Directors of Family Ministries for the North American Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We believe that one of the most important roles you will ever play is that of being a parent.
In the midst of a secular society, it's easy to leave God out of the training of our children. The purpose of this series is to not only put God back into the equation, but to place Him at the very center.
Parenting stretches us and shapes us like no other experience on this earth. It's a sacred responsibility, and there is no higher calling. It's a calling that has its shares of joys and challenges. It's a calling that demands a big investment on your part if it is to yield results. And yet those returns on that investment will last throughout eternity.
Today we're going to discuss that time in your child's life from 8 to 12 years of age, better known as the tween years. From shyness to independence, this can be a wildly exciting and tumultuous time of your life as a parent, but also for your tween.
It is a time of changes and transitions, and there will be no other time in life when one will experience as many changes, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. It's hard for us as parents to keep up with the changes that come as quickly as that sun rises and sunsets. Your little one is a babe in arms no more. Dependence on you has now morphed into independence and, in many cases, a very stubborn will. Your child's social circle has now widened to include friends that have become very important in his or her life.
It's interesting to note that as research began on this program, there was noticeably less information for these transitional years. Information was readily available for new parents and for parents of teenagers. This in-between time, however, is not given the platform that it truly deserves. And so today, we're going to look at the big picture as we discuss parenting tweens.
Our special guest today is Dr. Jiwan Moon. He currently serves as the Public Campus Ministries Director for the World Headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He graduated with a BA degree in Religious Studies and a minor in Practical Theology from Southern Adventist University, an MA in Youth Ministries, and a doctoral degree in Youth and Young Adult Ministry from Andrews University.
Dr. Moon is Korean, American, Canadian, and has been married for 11 years. He and his wife are the parents of 3 daughters. Dr. Moon has done extensive research specific to the age group we're considering today, and we're delighted that he is here to share his findings and expertise with us. Dr. Moon, welcome. We are truly delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Right before we begin our conversation, however, with Dr. Moon, we're going to visit in the home of the Robinson family, and they're going to share with us their perceptions on the challenge of raising tweens in today's world.
We have 2 children. My daughter is 10, and my son just turned 13. And we've seen a lot of challenges over the last couple of years, a lot of changes. And so on the outside, he looks more and more like a teenager, and yet on the inside, you can still see that he's also still very much a kid.
Hang up your jackets.
My daughter is beginning to change as well. And one of the things that I worry about for her particularly is all of the body image issues that come with being a girl.
No, that one makes me look ugly.
It just kills me when I hear her say things like that because she's a beautiful little girl. And so it's a real challenge to develop a positive body image in her when we live in a society that is so obsessed with an impractical and an imperfect ideal.
The waist is too skinny.
Oh, I think this is a cute one. You don't like that one?
No.
Another huge issue has been academics. For some reason, as they've gone into the tween years, they've struggled more and more with their grades. They'd much rather play a video game or go out and ride their bikes, play sports, whatever it is, rather than do their homework. Emotionally, there have been a whole lot of changes as well. On the one hand, the kids want to have more and more independence, yet at the same time, they don't have the maturity to always make good decisions. So that desire for more independence is conflicting with my desire to lead them and guide them and teach them the things that they need to know and to keep an eye on them so that they're going in the right direction.
When you have Christian standards in the home and Christian priorities and perspectives, that can often feel like it's in conflict to what they see as a norm in the world around them.
Yeah. You want to read your book?
And so as parents, I think this is one of the issues that we wrestle with on a regular basis, is ensuring that Christianity has to be portrayed in a way that to our tweens that is positive and affirming in their lives.
So what is it you're reading?
I don't want to be a parent that's hovering and doing everything for them. I want them to be able to think these things through themselves. I want them to develop those critical thinking skills. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we're providing input into their lives so that they're making good choices and so that they're not just left out there trying to find their way all by themselves.
Dr. Moon, you heard from the Robinson family the changes that they're experiencing with their children, which are not different from many other parents. In your research, can you tell us about some of those changes that tweens go through?
In fact, that period between childhood and the adulthood is referred to as adolescence. And it's the early adolescence that we're talking about.
Right.
And this period can be summarized in 3 keywords: changes, major changes, transitions, and possibilities.
Okay.
This is a period where they are learning to grow up, to be their own self. In fact, adolescence, the word came from a Latin word adolescere. It's popularized by G. Stanley Hall, who is referred to as the father of adolescent psychology. And the word means to grow up, to grow into adulthood, or womanhood, or manhood, or it could also
becoming adults.
True. So adolescence is a period where you're learning to become an independent person. So
But
if you want
one
to
of the challenges
Exactly.
that people have, that we, as parents, we sort of want to keep our kids under our wings while at the same time letting them fly.
And I like the phrase you just used. They're learning to become independent. We saw it in the clip, this conflict between the child wanting independence, but yet not being ready to take off yet.
Yeah.
They want to have a choice when they want to choose to become a child and when they choose to become an adult. However, as a parent, you want to be able to have much input and influence on your child. But when adolescence is a time when you want to become an adult, often when you're with your parents, you are dependent, you're not independent.
Right.
So that is the reason why when they're going through this tweens period, they want to stay and keep some distance from their parents and pick to choose when they want to come to them, rather than wanting to be always subjected to the influence.
What happens if the parents give children who want independence, if they give them too much independence, if they basically say, do as you please?
Well, I often say it will be the art of knowing when to stand firm and when to allow them to grow up. Often we want to make choices for our children, but adolescence or tweens is a time you're teaching them to make choices of their own. So I would tell the parents, help your children make choices rather than make choices for them. From the clip we saw, sometimes a parent says, I think you should wear this clothes or this dress.
Right.
But when child says, no, I don't want to wear this dress because all my friends are wearing something else.
All my friends, that's the key word there. Everybody's
right.
doing it. Yeah. You mentioned 3 things. Again, changes,
Transitions
transitions.
and possibilities.
So let's talk about the changes.
Sure.
What are the changes that they're experiencing?
They're going through, this is a time when the body is growing up. It has a growth spurt, about 7 to 10 centimeters. You will grow taller each year during this tweens when you're transitioning.
Okay.
Much hormonal, the effect is taking place. So you are growing physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, sexually, psychologically, and also spiritually.
In general terms, when do those changes begin? I know we're talking about 8 to 12, but it seems like now it's moving Yeah, to younger and younger ages.
When the word adolescence was popularized, at the time they defined adolescence to begin at the age of 13. But we're noticing in the 21st century with the availability of social media
Right.
that the beginning of adolescence, which is often marked as at the onset of puberty, is getting younger and younger and younger.
Right, right.
And in my research, I found out that there are some places in the world, for example, Australia, that 8 years old is marked as the beginning of adolescence. And
Wow.
the girls are experiencing menarche as early as 8. And so these changes are taking place. But if I could speak about one very important change that is taking place, this is finding of a recent study, is that the frontal lobes are continuing to...
Of the brain you're talking about.
Exactly. A significant growth during the period of adolescence. Traditionally, it was believed that much of the brain development completes at the early ages of childhood. But they're learning that that is not the case.
Right.
Important and significant brain development, especially the front cortex, this is where you're making the moral decisions.
Right.
This is where you're doing...
Seat of judgment.
Right,
basically, is what we
abstract
call it.
thinking, as Piaget calls it. So this is a time when your brain is developing, and that part of the brain is helping you to become more spiritual, become a more moral person.
So in the early years, childhood, we have to begin the spiritual training of the children, but it is during those years that they're beginning to make the most serious application. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So I would refer to children's faith stage as reactive stage. If there is a stimulus, you respond to stimulus. So if you have a good, godly parents, and the parent says, let's go to church, most likely the child will come to church with their parents. But when you reach adolescence, a period where your frontal lobe is developing, and you are asking questions, why do I have to go to church? You're starting to do abstract thinking.
Right.
And I call this stage as reflective stage. You're reflecting. Whatever is given to you as a norm, as a truth, will be challenged, and they'll be asking questions.
You're not simply taking it in, you are trying to make sense out of it for yourself.
And this is often what I hear from the parents. My children used to say, yes, Mom, yes, Dad. And all of a sudden, they have so many questions.
Yes.
Why
Or
can't they
challenges.
just obey?
Yeah.
And that's what parents often say.
But this research also explains the big challenge that parents find themselves in. Because we saw in the clip that this is a time that the children are striving for more independence, and yet you've just shared with us that this is also the time that that frontal lobe that guides in the decision-making process is still being developed. So here we see, these two things come in contrast, or a reason perhaps that this time can be so challenging for mom and dad.
It's interesting that adolescence is referred to as period of stress and turmoil. And this is how they describe it, because this is very difficult for everyone involved. Often parents are saying, this is very, very hard to have twins in my house, as you heard from the parents here. But can you imagine from the point of view of adolescence, all of a sudden their body is changing. They're seeing things on their faces, They're becoming very self-aware and self-conscious. In fact, there is a phrase called imaginary audience. It's a feeling that adolescent has that everyone is looking at me.
Yeah.
So as they're becoming a social being, they start to feel like they're center of everyone's attention. And this is why they spend 15 minutes in the morning trying to decide which clothes that they're going to
Well, and
wear.
they are looking at their friends and comparing themselves to the friends, and that's what they say, well, everybody's doing it. All my friends are doing it. So it's that sort of a subconscious competition to want to be like them, to want to be accepted, and therefore challenging their parents maybe to say, allow me to be like they are, when the parents want them to be what their ideal is. We're going to continue this conversation after a little break that we're going to take, and we want to talk about the other two things that you mentioned. We talked about just the changes But we want to talk about the other two items, which are also very important. So we'll come back after we take a short break. You can probably already tell that we will not be able to cover every area, every concern, or every question you may have in the short time that we have together. Parenting will continue to produce new challenges and new questions every day. As our children grow and change, so do the parenting challenges we face.
And therefore, our goal is to continue this conversation with up-to-date resources and practical parenting tips that you can apply in your day-to-day parenting journey. We will do this online via our website, www.helpimaparent.org. And there you may keep up to date on all of our newly released parenting resources, supplemental products, and even find additional materials to download free of charge.
You're also invited to submit any questions that were not answered for you, subscribe to an electronic newsletter, read a blog for parents, and much more. Again, the accompanying website is helpimaparent.org.
And in addition to that website, we also have a Facebook page where we post daily words of encouragement and resources. So look us up on Facebook, Help, I'm a Parent. And remember, share that Facebook post with the friends in your social network.
It is our desire that this resource will assist you in your God-given role as a parent by using principles that are firmly grounded in the Word of God. Now let's get back to our conversation with today's guests. Welcome back to our conversation with Dr. Moon, who's telling us about his research on tweens and the challenges that they go through during that transition time. So Dr. Moon, before the break, we were talking about the first thing that the tweens are going through, and that's changes. Physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual, all those, a variety of changes, and also the image that they see of themselves. But you also mentioned a second thing that they go through, a second experience, and that's transition. So tell us a little bit about that.
You know, the ages 8 to 12, you are, one of the major transitions is you're moving from elementary school to a junior school or junior high school. Whereas elementary school, they treat the students almost as a one body. But when they go to junior high school, they are treated individually, independently.
Yeah.
So the way how the curriculums are developed, instead of it becoming a shared experience from a more nurturing environment where they were in elementary school, it become more of an independent experience. You get to choose, and so that is another transition we can think of. And obviously, as now you are learning to become a social being away from the parents, you are learning to fit in, and this is why the peer pressure has a much effect on our children. And
I'm thinking as a boy anyways, if you're 8 years old and you're barely beginning to change and you have a 12-year-old who's already going through or has gone through the changes and they're both showering together after gym class or things like that, that can be a shocking experience to both a boy and a girl.
Very, that's very true. And the hormonal changes are affecting them, and some of them will enter into puberty earlier than the others. So one boy is starting to look like a man, and I remember when I was 11, 12 years old, I was the shortest kid, whereas before that I was one of the tallest.
Sure.
A few years later, I became one of the tallest kid in my class. But this is a transition. Your body is going through a transitional period. And there's another phrase that's known for this period. It's called personal fable, that you feel vulnerable. You feel that you are able to overcome any challenges. So you feel invincible. And it's called personal fable. And this is the reason why you do dares. They have unprotected sex. And they will simply do it because their friends do it.
Yeah.
I remember
Nothing
also.
bad is going to happen to me anyway.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I think I was 11 years old, and my classmates, the boys, decided to show who is the bravest, and they all decide to jump off the second-story building.
Oh.
And I was among those foolish ones with personal fable that I jumped. But that day, one of the boys who tried, he broke his arm. So this is a time where you experience this transition, where you want to fit in.
So a part of that, Dr. Moon, could be the strong desire to be accepted by your peer group, coupled with the brain that's still developing, and I'm not making good decisions right now.
Right.
So my desire to please my peers and be accepted in their eyes is stronger than this brain capacity to make the decision. I really probably shouldn't be doing this right now.
Now, it's interesting to me anyways, because sometimes we tease little boys and little girls, almost pushing them to start early dating. You know, you're 10 years old, Susie, so you have a boyfriend? Or Johnny, what is your girlfriend's name? But what you're saying, obviously, is it's too early to even think or suggest that kind of thinking.
You know, during the time of Jesus, you know, many years ago, many centuries ago, some cultures, the girls got married as early as 13 years old. In fact, there was a Hebrew tradition that the girls, they were given away in marriage at the age of 13, and the boys got married at the age of 18 when they're able to support their family. So imagine that the early adolescent twins, actually they are entering into a period where they're feeling sexual libido, that their body is able to conceive and they're able to reproduce. Right. So their body is telling as early as 9, 10, 11, hey, I can have a baby. That's what the hormones are saying.
That's right.
You're able to have the reproduction.
Right.
So that's the reason why you are engaging in activities with your peer, and this is where the peer influence is much affecting.
Dr. Moon, our time with you is going so quickly, and as I'm looking at that clock, count down the minutes, I want to be sure to get into this third thing you talked about, because I'm excited when you use the word possibilities for our tween children. So please talk to us about this third thing you mentioned, possibilities.
There was one book that was recommended by a professor who I knew at the Andrews Seminary. The book, the title is called Like Dew Unto Youth. And the author, Peter, said, we should look at this period as a gift of God. God is allowing our children to become a person, an independent person who is making decisions of their own. You know, adolescence is a time that you're defining who you are. You know, the personal fable that I spoke of, a sense of vulnerability, you know, you are invincible. But at the same time, if you have a mentor who can allow them to use their sense of vulnerability, you can introduce them to a mission projects or do some noble cause that would allow them to use their energy and the sense of.
So as a parent, you might have that tendency of looking at the changes and the transitions as a scary time. But what you're suggesting is that we look at those changes and transitions as the possibilities for growth, for independence, for maturity.
Exactly. So I'm telling the parents, be proactive. Don't be reactive. You know, don't approach it as, how am I going to deal with this problem?
Right.
But recognize they're going through a process of becoming an adult. Start treating them like one.
Right.
Helping them make good choices. Tell them they have so much they can accomplish.
Yeah.
They're no longer a baby, per se.
Hey, your conversations change. It's almost like talking to a little adult that becomes an older adult until they become adult.
But of course, there are times they want to come to you and just want to become a baby and continue to become a baby.
Sure.
But you have to recognize they are half twins. They're in-betweens. They're a child at the same time starting the process of becoming an adult.
Yeah, which is, again, a beautiful thing that you don't. Sometimes as parents we say, oh, if I could just keep my little baby. But we don't really want to have babies for their entire life or even 8-year-old kids. No, as they begin to move through those tween years to adulthood, to youth, to, you know, It's a beautiful experience, so enjoy it and treasure it.
And you are actually investing in the process of transforming your children to become champions in faith.
Yeah.
That's right. And I just love how you are encouraging the parents who are watching this today. Yes, there are challenges, but let's not focus on the challenges or the negative. Let's look to the possibilities. And let's look to helping them be the man or woman that God designed them to be, and how we're so privileged as parents to partner with God in that process.
We only have a couple of seconds. What would you say to the parents watching today about the tween years of their kids?
I'll tell the parents hanging in there.
Yeah.
We remember our own tweens. We also did some things that when we look back, we wonder why we did it. But this is a period that we like to explore, but in the presence of a godly mentor, and parents can be godly mentors, through helping our children make right choices, allowing them to know that they're in the process of becoming an adult. You can really contribute and help them become men and women of God.
Great words. Thank you so much, Dr. Moon, for being with us today. We appreciate your great advice.
My pleasure.
And we also want to thank you for joining us as we explored some of the transitions and changes that are happening in the life of your tween child. We want to remind you to visit our parenting website at www.helpimaparent.org. There you will find many additional resources and materials that may assist you.
As much as you love your children, God loves them even more. But He has appointed you as their steward, their caretaker during their lives here on earth. Even more important, He has entrusted you with the task of preparing them for their forever home in heaven with Him.
God never said parenting would be easy, but He did say that He will never leave us or forsake us. The Creator who knit our children together in the womb and has numbered the very hairs on their heads holds the blueprint for their lives. Claim His promises and invite Him to co-parent with you.
So join us next time on Help, I'm a Parent, Christian Parenting in the Real World, when we will talk about ways that you can kindle that spiritual fire in your children. Until then, we invite you to embrace this time of transition in your child. You have been given a front row seat to watch them become the man or woman that God designed. Claim God's promises and remember, you don't walk alone. Make Jesus the center of your home today, and may showers of blessings rain down on your family.